Hey everybody. So I'm not necessarily taking devil's advocate right now when it comes to the Monsanto Roundup glyphosate verdict. I'm actually looking at specific keywords that are used in the holistic world when people are chelating heavy metals out of their body, or when people are using drugs, whether it's prescription drugs or over-the-counter drugs, for a specific purpose. There's elements that inhibit hormones or bring to surface hormones relative to the purpose or relative to the intention. And these corporations out there that are like BIOTECH are trying to create a service in mass production to keep costs down ultimately. Now, I understand the organic, vegan, vegetarian world, the off-gridders want to eradicate corporations, and they want everybody to just grow their own plants and grow their own crops. But obviously, that's not completely wholly possible because we have people in the inner cities, we have people all over the place that right now are a little bit busy and don't have time to grow all of their nutrients. Okay? So that's why we have big agricultures, because they provide us with food and sustenance. So that way we can go and pay attention to our children. So we can go and do fun things. So we're not worried about growing all of our plants. We'll pay somebody to grow our plants. Okay, so there's a reasoning behind corporations and big agri. Not to say that we love everything that they do, but sometimes it's a necessity. Do we have time to go and shoot animals to feed ourselves? I mean, back in the caveman days, they were going after the buffalo and the woolly mammoth and all of that, or the Indians went after the buffalo and used the buffalo meat to feed their family, used the fur to clothe their families, and then they used the bones for instruments. So we have a lot of history around hunting animals for food. Obviously, we're not going to have people here in Canton, Ohio go and catch all their food because, first of all, I don't really feel like killing an animal. If I want to eat a chicken, I don't want to kill it and eat it. I'd rather have somebody else do it and I'll just eat it, and that's fine. So there's reasonings behind all of these types of things. So I remember in the beginning when I first started doing this research about organic versus GMO, and genetically modified is when you are infusing a certain element into a seed that will then, stop insects from eating it, and then it has certain poisons in it, and then so it kills insects, and then it also does some other stuff to the surrounding areas. I think it's like an insecticide inside your actual plant, your fruit or vegetable. But here's the thing, people said, oh, it's so dangerous, GMO is so dangerous and all this stuff. And I'm like, I didn't use organic for my cabbage. I didn't use anything really organic at all. And so I healed in spite of using conventional vegetables, which told me that, you know what, GMO is actually not poisonous relative to how you understand. It's what you bring to the table, as I keep saying. And so this thing with the herbicides and Roundup, well, that's obviously not being infused in some of these plants like legumes. There's GMO resistant type crops that they have to actually put the herbicide or the insecticide on the outside of the plant. Okay, well, there's a chemical composition that goes along with this. But I wanted to kind of connect some dots here because we have a lot of people out there that are so afraid of heavy metal accumulation, like so afraid of it. And so they are using chelating agents to go and detox themselves. Okay. And so when I saw and I was looking up the the just what glyphosate is made up of, and I saw through PubMed it talks about glyphosate as a chelating agent and then the impact on the environment and the body and then the whole study about it. And I'm like, oh, this makes sense because what is glyphosates really doing? They're just mitigating certain plants. They're targeting certain plants. They are binding to certain minerals and certain things in specific plants to stop it from growing. So stopping weeds from growing around crops, because weeds, as you know, take over and take away all the nutrition in the water from certain plants. And that's why people pick weeds or they use certain herbicides so they don't have weeds. Okay. And nothing wrong with that if it's done, if it's been studied and been researched and then been evaluated by the regulators to make sure that it doesn't pose as an environmental threat or a human threat or an animal threat. And so when I looked, when I have all these activists on my Facebook sending me links about how Monsanto and Roundup, the jury found them guilty of causing this guy's cancer, I'm like, when the science is not settled, the jury will find, then will be the one to make that decision. I'm like, I'm looking at the juries as a general population, which is not much. There's a lot of ignorance in the general population, especially around chemistry and science. There really is so much ignorance. And so if you're having a jury make a determination whether or not Roundup actually caused that guy's non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, I'm like, correlation doesn't mean causation. For one, that guy Hardiman, he already had issues in his body. Now, this scenario where he was using it, I think he was a groundskeeper. I think he was working in landscaping, and his bosses were forcing him to use Roundup every single day to keep the weeds under control. And then his exposure, that continuous exposure, and I don't know if the warnings were on there, but I did look up and look and see if the warnings were there. And right now there is. Back when he first started this case, or back when he had complications and then tried to make that connection to Roundup, I don't know if they had those warnings on there. But I'm sure that they did. I mean, everything out there, if you're not balancing your body correctly, is going to then adversely affect you. Everything out there could potentially cause cancer if you're not taking care of yourself. So I think actually it's a bunch of bullshit, okay, that Monsanto is being held responsible for this guy's non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, when really that guy that is claiming that really brought to the table a very poorly balanced body. Now, it's not his fault because he wasn't taught this, but is Monsanto truly responsible for his issue? We have so many mutations in the population that anything that is antibiotic could be linked to somebody's overabundance of antibodies that potentially could mutate the body and turn into a disease. So now it's like, okay, these corporations are going to be scrambling to figure out that we have a very mutated public. And if they do see this overaccumulation of antibodies that may be linked to some of the ingredients in their product, they have lawsuits coming out of their ass. But BIOTECH also is a drug maker. So this thing with the glyphosate is no different than the drugs out there on the market, the immunotherapies, the detoxes, the pills, powders, and supplements, the chelation therapies. And so BIOTECH is not going to completely expose all of their trade secrets and say, okay, well, how is this glyphosate any different than the drugs that you're taking? It's perfectly safe, but yes, if there's a few people that won't be able to do some of these products that we have on the market because they brought to the table all of these different mutations. That's why the FDA has to then go and approve of some of these drugs, because BIOTECH has to go through their double-blind studies and do all of their due diligence to say, okay, well, we use this element, and it affected these bodies in this way. And if there's an overwhelming benefit, that they see this immediate results, then this drug is safe, but here are the side effects. See, biotech is not going to do that. So that's why they lost in court, because the science is really settled, but they can't reveal truly that really the glyphosate is really not dangerous. But if they say that and then they justify by why it's not, they would have to then go into how they develop these drugs and what it does to the human body. So these chelation methods, that what glyphosate is, it chelates, it binds certain minerals, and it targets certain plants that that are undesirable in a leguminous or a crop that is like legumes, like soybeans and corn and rapeseed, and then some other crop. And so that's the point of glyphosate. It's an herbicide, and maybe there's some even pesticides out there that are being used. But hey, we are around all these different elements all the time. But here's the thing, we have people in the population completely ignorant, mutated, not taking care of their bodies, and they're procreating on mutated bodies as well, and they're having mutated children. So yeah, it's going to stand to reason and see there's that when somebody is exposed to an amount of negative elements, they're going to trigger something, because that plus a bunch of other factors are contributing to their non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, cancer. So what's going to happen in the future with all of these mutated people so sensitive to everything out there? Well, I guess we all go back to, I don't even know what that's going to look like. It looks like that, because even if we get rid of these chemicals like glyphosate, even if we get rid of those, okay, we're going to still see mutated people out there, because they're not fixing their mutations. They're not fixing the root cause of why it is they're so sensitive to some of these things out there. So this is where I'm going to point out the hypocrisy in the organic, vegan, vegetarian, Monsanto hating people out there who also chelate and go and do heavy metal detoxes and play with the pills, powders, and supplements, and use turpentine or other types of chelation therapies, because you are now hypocritical. Because what chelation is, so in case you guys don't know what it is, chelation means to grab on or hold on. Chelation therapy is the use of specific chemical substances or minerals. Okay, minerals. Chemicals is a scary word, because it's tied to pathogens and pollutants. And really, it's just a bunch of minerals put together that may adversely affect your body. But when they're in their individual compounds mixed with other types of elements that are friendly to the body, it's not dangerous. But obviously you're not going to be drinking gas, because that's a conglomeration of minerals and gases and other things that will, negatively affect your body's processes. So chelation therapy is the use of specific chemical substances called chelators that bind to and help remove toxic metals from the body. Okay, so these chemicals can be synthetic or natural. Well, what is synthetic? Something that is like an animal or something that's not naturally occurring in your body. So some people can use their own antibodies to chelate certain things in the body, using the body against itself. What is it? Being a terrorist? Using immunotherapies, being a terrorist to your body. Okay, so these chemicals or minerals can be synthetic or natural. The therapy can be administered intravenously or orally, and occasionally in other ways as well. So that's called vaccines. Okay, all right. So chelation is used mainly by holistic doctors and naturopaths. Oh yeah, I'm pretty well aware of the naturopaths using poisons to chelate bad things out of their patients' bodies. The use of chelating agents to remove toxic metals is the medical textbooks is in the medical textbooks and has been for years. However, chelation therapy to remove calcium from arteries, for example, is not officially approved conventional medical therapy. So I got this definition from some naturopathic website, but I want to kind of give you a definition so you know what chelation means. So what is glyphosate? Okay, well, glyphosate is there's different types based upon the different purposes, but right now what we're seeing like in Roundup, I think it's like ammonium and salt, and that's what a glyphosate is. So salt is an antagonism of glyphosate. So it actually lowers the toxicity, the phytotoxicity, okay, of the glyphosate. So salt is paired with a lot of different elements, and it depends upon the intention. And sometimes salt will energize a specific thing like monosodium glutamate, or you have like the different cell salts, but those different cell salts are not good for you. So don't be doing the Santos Bonacci cell salt stuff, because what they're doing is, or what he's recommending is, you compartmentalize all the different heavy metals and you add salt to it and have it bind and then have it energize, and it's supposed to help specific parts of your body. But no, that's again compartmentalizing the minerals, not actually taking into account that the body has an intelligence to be able to take in jelly juice with all the different minerals and then process it and distribute all those minerals and nutrients according to the body's intelligence. No, the cell salts are actually doing you guys a disservice. So don't get caught up in binding salts with specific single elements, okay? So salt is an energizing force, or it can actually antagonize a specific element, make it less toxic, okay? So salt is so I found this on JSTOR. Salt is an antagonism of glyphosate. However, many other salts in the spray carrier have antagonized glyphosate phytotoxicity. Research was conducted with wheat as bioassay species to further determine the influence of various salts on glyphosate phytotoxicity. Cation antagonism of glyphosate occurred within iron, zinc, calcium, magnesium, sodium, potassium. Okay, so this is like electrolytes, which means that jelly juice is an antagonism of ammonium, okay, of the glyphosate. All right, so acids and ammonium salts of nitrate and chloride were more effective in overcoming sodium bicarbonate than calcium chloride antagonists of glyphosate. So ammonium salt of nitrate and chloride were far more effective in overcoming sodium bicarbonate than calcium chloride antagonists of glyphosate. So ions in water used as spray carrier has been shown to either increase or decrease weed control with glyphosate. So there's so many different types of glyphosates, and when they're matched with salts, they have a specific purpose. And we saw that salt is the antagonism of glyphosate. So glyphosate is like ammonium, and then you have salt attached to it. So here you go. So these are the different medical subject headings, okay, for glyphosate. So there's glyphosate, glyphosate, glyphosate hydrochloride, okay, glyphosate calcium salt, glyphosate calcium salt, another one, and then glyphosate copper +2+ salt, glyphosate dilithium salt, glyphosate disodium salt, glyphosate magnesium salt, glyphosate magnesium salt, glyphosate monoammonium salt, which I think is a Roundup one, then glyphosate monopotassium salt, glyphosate monosodium salt, glyphosate sodium salt, glyphosate zinc salt, and then glycine, and then there's Roundup, and then there's uridine. So these are the different names. I think they were attached to, they were cross-referenced. Let me see something. Let me see if they were across from that. Oh yeah, Roundup. Okay. Glyphosate. Okay. All right. It's just another name for it. Okay. So anyways, so there's that. So glyphosate-based herbicides. You know what an herbicide is? It stops, good morning, Edith. It stops certain plants from growing, like weeds, okay? So glyphosate, which is no different than the drugs and then all the different chelating agents people are using out there. Okay, so glyphosate-based herbs consisting of glyphosate and formulants are the most frequently applied herbicide worldwide. The declared active ingredients, glyphosate, does not only inhibit the EPSPS, but is also a chelating agent that binds macro and micronutrients, essential for many plant processes and pathogen resistance. Okay, so when you have these types of things in the plant, it's then making pathogens resistant. All right. And Anna Proctor Wagenschutz. Oh yeah, we have an activist here that's like, oh my God, she doesn't understand chemistry. All right. So GBH treatment may thus impede uptake and availability of macro and micronutrients in plants. Hold on a second. Because install later. Because I'm going to do something real quick. Give me 1 second. I got a lot of trolls. A lot of trolls. God damn it. I know you guys are waiting for me, but I want to get this figured out first. Because I'm not going to give Anna the pleasure of anything. Block Anna Proctor Wagenschutz. Bye. You were a friend, but not anymore, because friends understand what's going on here. All right, anyways, so I will install, no, hold on. I cancel, install now. Stupid system update. Okay. So, goodbye, Anna. All right, so GBH treatment may thus impede uptake and availability of macro and micronutrients in plants. So it just depends on what it's actually targeting. It's not like it's killing the crop in question. It's just targeting specific known weeds in the area and stopping it, no different than inhibiting the prostaglandin hormone when you're taking some pill, powder, or supplement, okay? So the present study investigated whether this characteristic of glyphosate could contribute to adverse effects of GBH application in the environment and to human health. Well, yeah, if you are imbalanced and you're not well balanced and you're not countering any of the negative forces in your environment, yeah, you're going to have adverse effects to anything that's out there because it's just part of your environment. You can't get away from pathogens and you can't stop the healing, okay? So according to the results, it has not been fully elucidated in the environment and to human health. According to the results, it has not been, elucidated in the environment and to human health. Okay, elucidated whether the chelating activity of glyphosate contributes to the toxic effects on plants and potential on plant microorganisms interaction, nitrogen fixation, or leguminous plants. It is also still open whether the chelating property of glyphosate is involved in the toxic effects on organisms and other plants described in many papers. By changing the availability of essential by changing the availability of essential as well as toxic metals that are bound to soil particles, the herbicide might also impact soil life. Okay. So glyphosate is a broad spectrum herbicide ingredient active both against both mono and dicotyledonous plants. So mono and dicotyledonous. So glyphosate is a broad spectrum herbicide ingredient active against. So it targets specific plants. Okay. And glyphosate-based herbicides are the most widely used herbicides globally, due in large part to the cultivation of genetically modified glyphosate-resistant crops, such as soybean, corn, cotton, oilseed, rape, and others. Okay, so there are some of these minerals that the plant is resistant, or the plant resists those specific minerals. Okay, so they have to put it on the outside. So the declared active ingredient glyphosate is not applied alone, but in combination with various formulants intended to increase its action. The use of GBH has increased significantly in the European Union too, where GR crops are not authorized for cultivation. Here, the herbicide is applied preceding after harvest for desiccation purposes, restricted in some countries, and in non-agricultural settings. Approval procedures for herbicides, active ingredients such as glyphosate, are regulated in the EU by specific legal frameworks that define also requirements for reapproval. So here we go. Glyphosate, authorized in the EU in 2002, has been in the process of reevaluation and the extension of its use from 15 December 2017 for another 5 years, as proposed by the Commission, has recently been approved by the member states. Okay, so then glyphosate is known to inhibit 5-enopyruvylshikimate 3-phosphate synthase, or EPSPS, to make it short, an enzyme of the shikimic acid pathway that leads to the biosynthesis of aromatic acids, phenylalanine, tryptophan, and tyrosine, and a range of other substances. So how is that different than when you're taking your prescription drugs? How is that different when you're taking your detoxes? How is that any different when you're eating foods that may be antibiotic, stopping certain hormones or eliciting certain hormones? I mean, you got to understand, this is what chemistry is, you guys. You got to understand how chemistry works, okay? So as this pathway is present only in plants and microorganisms, glyphosate was considered to be low toxicity to humans and animals. However, more recent research, has raised concerns that glyphosate may be more harmful to animals and humans than previously expected. And this is 2016. Maybe because we have mutated people. And you're seeing the vaccine schedule right here that shows we have some major mutated people who are sticking their head in the sand. So of course, things that weren't very toxic to people 10 or 15 years ago are going to be toxic today because we got mutated people. Not that the vaccines did it. No, people are reproducing on mutated bodies, creating mutated children who are then going to be so sensitive to their environment, they're going to have to live in a freaking bubble in the future. So this is where biotech needs to realize and what's going on. They're going to shoot themselves in the foot as they keep promoting the drugs and the detoxes and the supplements. And then they're trying to do mass agriculture to keep the costs down so you guys don't have to go and try to buy fruits and vegetables from your local farmer who can't mass produce for the whole community. And then they're going to charge you up the ass for all of their organic fruit and vegetables because they know they can, because you're putting biotech out of business. There's some major ramifications, infrastructure ramifications, if we don't really understand the chemistry behind this, okay? So, anyways, glyphosate is also known as a potent chelator for minerals, a property that has been observed decades ago, even before the herbicidal effect of glyphosate was discovered. If glyphosate, in fact, binds essential minerals effectively, its application could lead to an undersupply of minerals that are essential cofactors in many biological processes in treated plants, and potentially also in organisms feeding on such plants. Now remember, we live in a society where there's so many different elements, and if we are going to be using things to help mass produce so we're not competing with weeds, we may need to give our animals and humans a balancing force to keep and counter anything that we're using for advanced technology, advanced society. Okay, it's like we have to like our bodies and our minds have to catch up with advanced technology. And right now we're not keeping up with technology. And those that don't keep up with technology, they're going to be left in the dust, because biotech has to keep up with mass producing stuff, because yes, there's a lot of competition out there on Earth, not so much in our society as far as corporations, but there are plants that want to go and take over an area, especially if you're trying to mass produce food to feed society. So this in turn could impact plant resistance to disease and affect human animal health. Although the chelating properties are well known, this potential additional environmental risk was never adequately considered in the regulatory risk assessment. Well, they're looking at now. We have a lot of mutated people. So, and we have mutated animals as well. Okay. So while the chelating properties of glyphosate was discovered and patented a long time ago, this literature review is performed to critically evaluate its role and effect that are not readily explained by the inhibition of EPSPS. To this end, not only peer-reviewed papers are considered, but also scientific opinions of EFSA on glyphosate and on genetically modified GR crop plants. So just to give you kind of an idea of where I'm coming from, just so you know. When people are using bentonite clay, when these naturopathics and homeopathics and all of these holistic people who are so against Monsanto and glyphosate take in bentonite clay, guess what bentonite clay is? Bentonite clay, which is often referred as a healing clay detox, is a safe, effective, and a very natural way of detoxification. It binds heavy metals, radiation, chemicals, pathogens, and many other toxins. And then bentonite clay or magnetic clay has a powerful drawing and absorptive capabilities. It's a chelating agent, no different than glyphosate. It has a specific purpose, but however, we have since found out when you're taking in negative elements such as clay, because it's aluminum, okay, clay is aluminum. So it is attracting other types of heavy metals. So you're poisoning yourself with heavy metals to then detox heavy metals. No different than using zeolite, which is aluminum silicate. No different than taking organite and taking the resin and the crystals and binding copper and other heavy metals to it, trying to eradicate Wi-Fi while you're negatively influencing your environment with these heavy metals, which is in organite. It is detrimental to your environment and to your plant's environment too. Get rid of organite out of your garden. The bentonite clay acts as the same way, okay? So, and then diatomaceous earth, same thing. It's a silica. It attracts and it neutralizes everything in its path, okay? So, heavy metals are absorbed in the honeycomb structure through positive and negative attraction, okay? So specifically, diatomaceous earth has a high negative charge, no different than alkaline water. No different than alkaline water. And it traps them in the honeycomb structure. And so you need a certain amount of minerals in your body, okay, or heavy metals. Okay, so when you're taking these types of chelating agents, another one is another chelating agent, here we go, which is the same thing as glyphosate, acts in the same way as glyphosate, is high doses of vitamin C, just vitamin C. When they're using just high dose of vitamin C to cure cancer, you're actually potentially putting somebody at a disadvantage. Zeolite, aluminum silicate, chlorella, another chelating agent, right? Cilantro extract, oh my God. Just using distilled water and that's it. We use, if you wanted to, use distilled water with the protocol because it's dead water and you're adding in all the minerals and the electrolytes and all that to the water. Reverse osmosis water is another chelating agent, okay? Charcoal tablets, and others are less toxic, right, than the major, chelating stuff, but still damaging in various ways and should be avoided. And they're saying that garlic and some other alginates are like safer, but it's just not, because when you actually look at the chemical composition of garlic, it's a heavy metal. Okay, so the fact that a jury found Monsanto guilty Roundup by making that correlation that the non-Hodgkin's lymphoma was as a result of the Roundup speaks to the same people in the Dr. Phil audience that were totally perplexed and completely like offended by Jilly Juice. This is who awarded this guy or who founded Roundup to be the cause. Okay, that doesn't say too much that a jury of your peers are people who are down in the street that have absolutely no science background. They listen to all of the different sound bites, probably a bunch of activists out there that don't understand chemistry, that are then listening to these very, I would say, clever monologues of how, well, why would they find it guilty? Because maybe Monsanto or the Roundup didn't say that over continuous use of time could potentially cause cancer in some people. So that's probably what was the thing, was that Monsanto said it was perfectly safe. However, didn't have a caveat to take into account those that are really like sick, like that guy Hardiman was really sick. And it wasn't like Monsanto forced him to do the Roundup and use it. It was through his job. I think Hardiman had to use it for his job. So I think he was exposed to it every single day. But they wanted to hold Monsanto or Roundup accountable and making that correlation equals causation. So if that's the case, then wouldn't you think that every single thing that is antibiotic out there would then now be open for lawsuits? See, this is where when Monsanto, they're stuck in a rock between a hard place. If they actually said, hey, it's what he brought to the table that caused this, then they would be opening themselves up to other lawsuits out there. But then they have to treat that Roundup as if it was like a drug with side effects. That's how they'd have to treat Roundup, is that, yes, you use this, but here are the side effects that could potentially happen over long-term exposure. Okay? And so they don't want to put Roundup or herbicides in the same context as drugs, because then it would essentially say that the drugs in Roundup are actually no different. However, here's the thing with J-Juice. J-Juice is going to counter that. See, those that are so worried about GMO and Monsanto and herbicides are not doing J-Juice at the level that they should. Okay? And just because a jury awarded this guy a verdict that it says that Roundup was the one that caused it doesn't speak at all, doesn't have any kind of weight. It doesn't mean anything. When someone says that Jilly Juice is poisonous, like Miles Power saying that, oh, Jilly Juice is the same thing as like turpentine, it's not even in the same freaking category. Turpentine is an antibiotic. It's pine oil. It's pine essential oil. All the essential oils are antibiotic. Jilly Juice is a probiotic. People don't know their chemistry. And so ignorance is so rampant in our society. I'm not surprised that Monsanto was held accountable. But now that I actually am calmed down, I'm not an activist, I think from an intelligent perspective, I do my research, I look up words, and then I see the connections. I'm not afraid of biotech, but here's the thing. We have to have mass agriculture, because guess what? If you take down mass agri or big agri, guess what? Those people, those farmers out there, those organic farmers would gouge the shit out of you because they know they have you over a barrel. You don't realize that why we have these big companies is to lower the costs. So that way you're not being gouged by the little guy. And some people don't have a lot of choices out there. And so they'd have to go to this one organic farmer or this one farmer that's going to charge $20 for a cabbage because they can. Because somebody put Monsanto out of business. They put big agri out of business. That's where the activists are trying to go, oh, we got to eradicate corporations, so there's no competition, and we want to have people, we want to basically create situations to where somebody doesn't have any choices at all. See, and so that's why I'm kind of taking up for biotech now, because now I understand, because biotech is a reflection and responding to the ignorance out there. But they're not going to shoot themselves in the foot and say, hey, glyphosate is no different than your prescription drug that has a specific purpose. It's not inherently bad. It's your mutated bodies. It's that guy Hardiman's mutated body that had a specific reaction. I mean, hey, if they're going to do that, then I guess all these vaccine injured people, allegedly, right? Which I wouldn't doubt that if somebody has an overaccumulation of antibodies and they took on a vaccine that had more antibodies, that would probably be the reason why they had an adverse reaction. But is that the vaccine's fault? No, the vaccine was fine, and it's been tested for mostly everybody, and only a few people had adverse reactions. So why do they have adverse reactions? Because they brought to the table many mutations, and it was up to the doctor to be the one to say whether or not that person was a candidate. So then you go see your doctor, not the actual manufacturer that already had it tested and approved by the FDA. And then why things get approved and then recalled is because, yes, the human body adapts. And when you're taking a drug for a specific purpose and the body gets used to it and adapts to it, it's going to now create antibodies against that poison, stop that curative effect, and then the pain returns. And then guess what? You have the side effects because you can't escape the laws of ingesting poisons. And so you're going to have mutations. And so they have to recall the product because too many people are adapting that quickly to all these poisons. So now it's you guys. So, now it's you guys having to take responsibility. I hope somebody in biotech listens to this, but they're not going to then try to put glyphosate in the same category as their prescription drugs, because then the cat would be really out of the bag, and then they would have to substantiate that, yeah, that's what they do, and why people do get sick from certain drugs because they brought to the table major fucking mutations, or they adapted so quickly to the poisons. But if you do J-juice, it's not going to be an issue. Okay? So you have a few negative elements in your fruits and vegetables. Big whoop. When you take J-juice, it has the salt, it has the minerals, has the lactobacillus. You have an intelligence of your body that will be able to release any excess minerals and absorb what it needs and fix some mutations, and you're not going to worry about it. No, you're not going to go sit in a gas chamber and try to tempt fate, but you will know how to achieve balance. No, you're not going to be taking prescription drugs because you won't need it. So that won't even be an issue for you guys. You're not going to be using chelating agents like the Andy Cutler method because you're not going to have a reason to, because you're going to have an actual digestive system that releases excess heavy metals. So you don't have to poison your body to allegedly release those heavy metals or give you a pleasurable feeling because you elicited a hormone because you took poisons. That's what these detoxes do, actually. The bentonite clay, I thought I actually cured my candida. No, I poisoned myself, elicited a hormone. I felt wonderful for a minute until the body then adapted and said, hey, we're not going to give you any more hormones. We see this is a poison. We're going to act accordingly. See, the detoxes are a total, like a total fallacy. It fools the shit out of you. You think because you feel good, it means that it's working. No, it means that you just create a freaking hormone that gave you that pleasurable effect because you're poisoning your body. You added stress to your body. So when you add stress to your body, guess what? It releases hormones to either get the poison out and then make you feel okay, and then the pain involved to try to heal. So anyways, Monsanto there's nothing wrong with Monsanto. Glyphosate, yeah, it's going to be demonized because we have mutated people who aren't taking care of themselves, and we have too many people that want to blame everybody but themselves. And yeah, Monsanto is going to be under a lot of hot water with all these mutated people. So I'm not sure what they're going to do. They might just have a slush fund, yes, okay, to see for all these cases against them. But really what they should be doing is going and looking in the background of all these people against them and saying, hey, you have diabetes, you have already, major mutations. So how can you hold us responsible for this? Okay, if we have a warning there on the label and you're using it every single day, wouldn't you have some common sense not to use it? You have the power of choice. See, I wish I could be a lawyer for them, just because now it really is individual responsibility. And I've always come from individual responsibility. It's not that I'm trying to play devil's advocate to sharpen my debating skills. No, it really does come down to it, because I understand the reason why it works that way. You get rid of big corporations in a lot of ways, and you have it to the little guy. Not all the little guys are going to be able to grow plants and crops. So right now I'm in this area in Canton, Ohio. I mean, we have 7 billion people on the planet. And you have an area like Canton, Ohio, and how much gardening can you really do? And then you don't know people do in the gardens. You know what they're doing. There's no regulation. How is the FDA going to regulate to see what people are doing and putting in their garden? They say, oh yeah, I grow organic. Bullshit. How do you even know? When someone says, oh yeah, I grow organic, what the fuck does that mean? You see what I'm saying? You got to have regulation to make sure that all of those vendors are not actually poisoning you with something else. Or who knows what they may be pissing in the garden, shitting in the garden. So you're eating somebody's piss and shit. Do you see what I'm saying? There's a reasoning behind why we have the FDA, why we have big corporations that have big agra. Okay? Because I won't necessarily really trust the guy down the street because he's not being regulated. He's not being washed over by an outside encountering force. Checks and balances. Okay? We have to have, even though there is corruption out there, it happens, but the checks and balances are there for a reason, to make sure that the vendor isn't doing something potentially harmful. And if they do use poisons, that it's used in a way that it's not going to adversely affect. But then they have to realize then the climate out there. We have a lot of mutated people, so maybe they have to then mitigate using certain types of things because of the fact we have more mutations out there. But if they can't use these if they can't take these certain elements to then mitigate all these weeds, then what do? You're going to have a higher cost because now they can't utilize the elements that are come so cheaply, and now they have to have more manpower to go pick the weeds, okay, which is going to up the costs of all of your food, instead of you just taking responsibility and counter the negative elements they're using to make their processes easier, to keep the costs down in that company. Because yeah, when things are more expensive because they have to use now more manpower, which I guess, okay, fine, you give somebody a job, but where's the balancing? At what point will it become a tipping point where food becomes so expensive because we're not allowing biotech to really understand how chemicals are used? And then where's your responsibility? But you can't legislate morals yet again. So I don't know. This is going to be interesting to see. But there's my perspective on glyphosate. I am not afraid of glyphosate. It's not the gluten. It's not the glyphosate either. It's you. It's all of you and your mutations. And you fail to take responsibility. It's not Monsanto's fault. So there. Bye, guys. Go to jillyjuice.com. Counter the negative elements. Have a good day.